Vivek, thank you so much for joining through this video call. What is happening? What are you doing? How are you managing?
So life is manic at the best of times. This time it's just manic on steroids. In fact, I'd ordered some stuff for my own home, hoping that it'll come somewhere in the middle of the interview, and I would have gone out and shown you how the delivery boy is operating. But as it turned out, he came much faster than expected. So he's finished his delivery. Otherwise, I was planning to show you the things we've done during these times, because since you're a regular orderer, you would have been able to see visible differences in how he would have operated.
Yeah.
He was wearing a mask and gloves. I had opted for what is called contactless delivery, which means that he doesn't hand over the package to my house. He leaves it in a clean place outside my house and then signals me to go pick it up. So I was actually hoping that you'd be able to see at least the visible parts of what we have done to keep the light bulb running during this time, because and I'm super happy actually that the government has called part of what we do as essential services, because the lockdown actually meant that people who are economic migrants, people who are reliant on other staff because let's say they're both working, are all sort of in a different situation, right? I mean, your typical Kamwali is not going to come home. Your typical you can't go out to eat. You're not going to the office to eat. You're not going to be able to go to your hometown and stay with your parents if you're a youngster. So none of that is possible. So there, for some people who are sort of stranded in their place of work, we have proven to be a bit of a lifeline. And therefore, I'm super happy that from day one, the Prime Minister called out delivery boys. Pretty much the state governments have called out delivery boys as essential to execute the letter and spirit of the lockdown, which is physical distancing, don't stir out, don't go to public places, all of that kind of stuff. So while we are super disrupted in most cities still, the fact is we have kept at least a minority of the fleet active in doing the work that we do. Those who had options, those who basically decided let's stay safe and eat in, are obviously eating at home. And therefore we have seen a massive difference in our orders. However, for some people, the fact that we exist is a lifeline. So right now, we are still in a minority of our cities operating. We are only operating in the top sort of 1/3 of our cities. And the rest of the places we are shut. So it's extremely disruptive, because you can imagine we were the providing employment to so many people in the ecosystem. Restaurants are shut for dine-in across the country. So pretty much everything you would have ordered, Shradha, would have been from a restaurant that was either a cloud kitchen or open only for delivery. And I think that makes a big difference.
Bowl Company, I ordered from the
Bowl Company is a cloud kitchen. So it was even before the lockdown operating only as a cloud kitchen. So that's fine. But there's a lot of other good brands out there that are now operating purely for delivery only.
What did it take in the back end to respond so quickly to the changes?
Sure. So, none of us can say that the lockdown came without warning. We had seen what was happening. This is a global phenomenon. China had basically shut Wuhan down practically. So we had seen it coming. That COVID cases had started happening in India, because obviously all of the travelers who were in these COVID-affected countries, etc., were affected and bringing it back. So, given that we had seen this scare happening, one of the things we had instituted well before the lockdown is the focus on keeping the delivery executive personally safe and hygienic, and also helping the customer with that. So we had instituted two things which is well before the lockdown. Number one was what we call contactless delivery. Because lockdown or no lockdown, we decided that physical distancing is always better than not. So we instituted this product, I think it was 3 weeks before the actual lockdown, 3 weeks before Janta Curfew, which was the first sort of preview of the lockdown. The second thing we had instituted is we had said, if the delivery guys are going to, and you know this, having reported for so many years, if there is an economic incentive or disincentive being lack of pay or incentive being pay, to go out there and work, a lot of our hardworking brothers and sisters do go out and work, and we see that, right? I mean, we see people who are on the blue collar workforce and store. They go out and work. They live in very tough times. So we decided that that doesn't work, because if the guy is saying mujhe bahar jaake kaam karna hai because pagar chahiye, and even if he's sort of sick, even if it's just a common flu, we decided it's not worth taking the risk. So we had instituted this thing where temperature checks for delivery executives was the norm. And if there is any fear that the DE has that he is sick because he's developing symptoms, even if it happens to be just common cold, we said go and admit yourself or go and show yourself to the doctor. And if there is quarantine recommended, then stay at home, your earnings are protected. And obviously that's a big thing, right? Because effectively this is a gig economy worker who needs to go out there to work to earn. So the fact that we had said stay at home and quarantine yourself meant, now touch wood, as it happens, we don't have these vast majority of our DAs haven't had to use it, but the few that have are sitting at home for 14, 15 days and they're protected. And when they're protected, there's no risk that they're going to go out there and try something because of, not bravado, but because of the economic.
Desperation also, right? Relief
That's right.
Fund for the delivery partners. Can you tell me about this?
Yeah, so the first two things I spoke about was pre-lockdown, because coronavirus and COVID and all of that had started. What this is referring to, what Harsha was referring to, is a bunch of things that we have done in the ecosystem to help the wider ecosystem play. One of them he talked about, which is all of the migrants who are essentially finding that it's hard for them to get food. We had worked with the Delhi government and now a whole host of governments. I think there are more than 10 states now that we're working with to work with restaurants and large kitchens to provide food for the migrants. And essentially we're working with NGOs, and obviously we have the last mile capabilities. So we are essentially providing that. And that is something which we are making sure is helping the country while it does its lockdown. That's one of them. But even before that, the restaurant ecosystem, as you know, the restaurant ecosystem, I'm sure you've spoken to folks in the NRAI or even the average restaurant out there. When the dine-in restaurants have shut, their lifeline has been chopped. So we're trying what we can on the delivery side of the business that's still open. So we have sort of improved their cash flow by giving the payouts to restaurant partners much quicker so that their cash is coming in faster. We are also helping reduce their discounting burden, because we know that at this point of time, they're not going to be able to advertise and discount as much because they are right now in survival mode. We are helping restaurants who are investing in hygiene to get, primary listing, so that the consumers can find them and they don't have to worry about, buying advertising space to show what's important. So there's a whole bunch of things we're doing for restaurants. There's a whole bunch of things we're doing for delivery partners. And of course, there's a whole bunch of things we're doing for the wider citizenry out there. And Harsha's tweet was one of those many things that we're doing.
Some of the delivery partners and their families are right now also very troubled, right? So workforce is not there available. But I still think that Swiggy is delivering. So
yeah, so you're in. So let's take the range of cities. We were in 500 plus cities pre-lockdown. As we speak, about 300 are shut. So there is no operations in 300. Now there happen to be the smaller cities where the government, in its judgment, has deemed food delivery to be such a small part of the overall ecosystem that it's not worth having the risk of having restaurants and crowding and stuff like that. So they're shut. For deliveries are shut. Because restaurants are shut, therefore deliveries are shut. In the remaining 150 odd cities, which is still a very large percentage of our urban population, we are operating. But we are operating with a skeleton of the original fleet. Now, why is that? Because many restaurants shut. Why are many restaurants shut? Because their staff are not reach, or their staff don't want to go. Restaurants themselves have voluntarily said, look, during this lockdown, it's good to kind of take a hit and shut down. So many of them have voluntarily shut down, even if they could open. So if there's no restaurant, there's no point of having a delivery fleet. So as we speak, Bangalore is the best open city from a food delivery point of view, with still only about 40% of restaurants open. So you can imagine the best in the country is 40% of restaurants open. The worst in the country is 0% of restaurants open. The best in the country, which is Bangalore, is about a third to half of the fleet operating. And in many places, of course, we have zero fleet operating. We believe that at this point of time, working with the government is the key. So wherever there have been operational challenges, meaning the government has said you can operate because you're allowed to operate, we have just worked with them to make sure that any on-the-ground challenges like passes for the delivery fleet, etc., or stuff that we expedite and work with the government, and they've been amazingly responsive. Bangalore actually has a WhatsApp group with police and municipal corporation and a whole host of IAS officers in there, and you'd be amazed. They operate at about 24/7. We could send a WhatsApp into that group and somebody will respond. Either the police will respond or the bureaucracy will respond, and they will solve the problems. And it ranges from slightly more strategic, which is, what permissions are out there and what is the framework, all the way to tactical, which is, vehicle number 4561 is stuck at Atibele. Can you make sure it's released? Even that gets released in real time. In 3-4 minutes, those vehicles who've been caught by the local police have been let go. And that means that we are starting to move towards a semblance of normalcy. You can never call this normal. You wouldn't want it to be normal. Lockdown is not normal. We're moving towards a semblance of at least solving consumers' needs in Bangalore. But I would say we are all spoilt in Bangalore. We have the best operations in Bangalore. Many other cities are shut. Many other cities are quite disrupted. But I didn't want this to be a sort of, a rant about how bad things are. The Uber objective is that we don't fall sick as a country. So anything that we can do to operate where we are allowed to operate, solve consumer problems where we are supposed to solve them, and everywhere else we comply with the government directives is the key. I mean, we're halfway through the lockdown. It's another 10 days to go.
Groceries and all are essential services, and you are piloting something in that direction.
That's right. So you would be aware of the fact that even before COVID, we had a grocery pilot on where we were connecting the last mile Kirana store and a whole bunch of mid-range stores to the consumer, leveraging the capabilities that we had on the ground operations, technology, and so on and so forth. What this lockdown has done is that a whole host of people who are sort of tied to their homes, both the governments as well as the consumers, are asking us to connect our fleet to the Kirana store or our fleet to the local supermarket. So we are essentially right now operating in, I think, about 10 cities and rapidly expanding that because there's so much inbound demand to operate stores. And if you take some of the cities like Lucknow or Jalandhar, effectively we are making sure people follow the lockdown by sitting at home. They can just go to the Swiggy app, order from the neighborhood Kirana, while supply chain is disrupted and you won't get your favorite brand of atta and your favorite brand of salt. I mean, at this point of time, I don't think people are caring about what brand of atta and what brand of salt they get. So the fact that we are allowing them to stay at home is a godsend. So it's doing pretty well. But remember, we are looking at it not in the economic terms of how well it's doing, but in terms of how much customer problems it's solving. So even if 3,000 people ordered and 3,000 people across these places didn't stir out, it's a good thing for the country.
That one thing about the company which you felt very proud of?
So the company, as you know, had scaled quite rapidly. We are now about 5 years old. In the first 3 years or so, we were only in about 15 cities. And in the fourth year was our so-called blitzscaling year, where we hit 500 plus cities. So obviously with that comes the need for processes and comes the need for a little less speed than what we are used to or happy with. But the good thing for me is that when come a crisis, and it's just amazing how everybody is just sort of, responded to the crisis by, let me put it this way. Every one of us is locked at home. And we are probably shipping product and operations and code faster than we actually did when we were sitting in our nice offices. So it's amazing how fast the company's staff, everybody from the senior most people to the junior people on the ground, have actually responded to this crisis and said, let's do stuff fast. If in the pre-COVID world, if we had said, we're going to have 10 cities where we have grocery operations, people would have said, you must be nuts. Grocery is a painful problem. It's not that easy to solve. Let's solve it slowly and this and that. And then right now we have, when people can't stir out of their homes. And the amazing thing is, very few of us have actually seen what a grocery operation looks like because we are locked down. So we're doing everything virtually. So I have only seen videos of grocery. I haven't been to Jalandhar. I haven't been to Lucknow. I haven't been to wherever else we need to operate, Chennai. I wish I could, but I'm seeing everything sort of virtually right now. And by the way, the person doing it is himself doing it from home. He's just having the delivery guy do a video and say, boss, kya hua batao? We are not used to this. We are an operations company. We pride ourselves in operations. We do, pound the sort of pavement and see what's happening on the ground. So the fact that we have turned around and shipped so many new things, both for the restaurant ecosystem as well as for the grocery ecosystem is something that just makes me feel proud.
Or some learning that you got during this time?
So I think, yes, of course, we are finding that we are able to operate lean. I don't know whether wartime operations is how we should operate for the next 1 year in peacetime. Yes, we will take learnings from this and reapply it. And obviously, we'll maybe be more comfortable with working from home and operating a lot more lean, a lot more things remote. All of that stuff I agree with. But I don't think this is how we will operate, once the full lockdown is over. We'll take some learnings from here and we'll take the best of what we think needs to be done together. Nothing still beats going and meeting a customer and meeting a delivery executive and asking him how he felt and thanking him in person for the work he's done, right? I mean, I've sent videos in, 13 languages to the delivery partners, thanking them for the work that they do. But it's not the same as standing in front of them and telling them that and looking at them feeling good about life, right? So some things, there's still they will not appreciate what I say, but the fact that I traveled to Jabalpur to tell them that is what they will appreciate.
Yes.
Right? So, so I think one of the things we probably should, we don't realize how much of a strength we have as a company with the fact that we built this food delivery operation across 500 cities, that, at this kind of crisis hour, we are suddenly seeing that, let me give you an example. I mean, I'm sure you saw it in the papers. One of the most essential things for people is cooking oil, and Marico has some great brands, and you would have seen the report of Marico tying up with us and with Zomato to get cooking oil straight from their warehouses into consumers' homes. The fact that we have hyperlocal operations means that we can connect a lot more things to the consumer in real time. So we've obviously started with things like Marico and groceries and stuff like that. You would not believe how many hospitals have reached out to us and said, since there is a lockdown and there are these non-prescription medicines, we don't need any prescriptions. Can you just have these things sent over to the consumers' homes using contactless delivery? And we've said yes. So we are having a lot of these, safe jugado stuff that's happening on the ground right now. You wouldn't believe the kind of stuff that is happening by us having a fleet that's on the ground. Connecting essentials. We're still not connecting non-essentials. Although people have tried to pass off mobile chargers as essentials, we have said, yeah, right. You know what? It's okay. But I think we are probably underestimating the strength that we had in a crisis is really what brought out the understanding that we have with consumers trusting us to deliver stuff that is hyperlocal, technologically enabled into their homes. So I think post-crisis, we would probably relook at our roadmap of what are all the things that we can connect to consumers' homes with a lot more, let's call it, openness than perhaps we did. We were very cautious and careful about what we wanted to add after food delivery. We added grocery, of course, and we added a few other things, pet stores and non-prescription pharmacies and all of that. But I think this has given us the license to think a little more blue sky. So let me put it this way. After this, once things settle down, and I hope India comes out of it with a flattened curve, I think once we're back to sort of humming territory, we should probably look at more use cases for Swiggy.